It's amazing how wisdom can come to you in your latter years and with hindsight. But this is a story about a foolish adventure we took 38 years ago when we were young men and we thought we were bulletproof and unsinkable. My friend who came back from Vietnam and introduced me to boats, and he really was keen to be involved in boating, and so he went and found this boat down at Port Adelaide for sale. It was an old fishing boat, a wooden carvel-hulled fishing boat with a diesel motor. It was called the Voyager, and we bought this boat for about, I think, $2,200 or something, and we only used it a couple of times out of Port Adelaide. We took it out into the Gulf and had a bit of a spin in it. Owen loved it more than I did. But anyhow, one day he decided we wanted to move it into the River Murray, which meant a long journey. So we got the boat ready and we set off on a Friday night. It was Anzac Day the next day, I believe. In 1975, we took it out of the Port River into the Gulf, headed down the Gulf on the Friday afternoon. It was a wonderful evening. The water was like glass, and we had a fantastic journey down to a place called Rapid Bay, where we stayed tied up on the pier there. The next morning we awoke and there were four of us. My brother Grantley came along and my brother-in-law Richard came. He was the mechanic. So then we headed down towards Cape Jarvis, Kangaroo Island, and once we left Cape Jarvis and headed out into Backstairs Passage, we hit the Southern Ocean, and the swell really was fierce. It came in on us in a very fierce way. Well, there we were hitting the Southern Ocean swell. It was quite a big swell, and we all started to get seasick. And we had a long journey down to the south coast. We were heading towards Victor Harbour and eventually into the Murray Mouth. We were all day virtually, from about 10 o'clock in the morning to about 5 in the afternoon, going along that Southern Ocean. And not too far out from shore, we could see the big cliffs up there, and we were rocking and rolling. And all of us were seasick. It was just terrible. Richard was hanging on the back of the boat and wanted to die. My brother Grantley said to me, "I'll give you everything I own if you can get me up onto that land," and which I couldn't do, but we kept going. And Pauline, she was worried about the kids and their dad out on the boat. She kept going to the bluff at Victor Harbour with binoculars and looking out for us.
When I met Paul, I knew I'd met a man who loved life and got into things. But boy, when he bought that boat, we didn't know what we were getting into. And even though we enjoyed a little Sunday afternoon trip on the Port River, I knew that going out to sea was very different. And these adventurous young men, the only reason they went on Anzac Day was because it was a long weekend. They didn't even look at a weather map. They wouldn't listen to me, and I thought, well, a man's got to do what a man's got to do. But it was an adventure, and we did love having the boat in the river, but I think we only went on it twice when it was in the River Murray at Goolwa. But the day that they brought it around by Victor Harbour was one of those days you'd rather forget, when you're so anxious and a little bit fearful that you can't even eat. And I had to be a bit resourceful and find out where the sea rescue were and who you got in contact with. And I had Mr. Kleinig's phone number in my handbag in case I needed to go and let them know. But when I saw them in the boat come around and the first spotting, the girls and I all jumped up and down and got excited. but it took them hours to get from that first sighting to mooring by Granite Island.
Eventually we came into Victor Harbour, and we nearly crashed on a... We were picked up by a huge wave, and it sort of took us like a surfboard towards the breakwater on the end of Granite Island. And we nearly crashed, but fortunately we were able to slip off the back of that wave. I turned it around and we went back out to sea and took a wider berth to come into Victor Harbour.
And the night they arrived, we were glad to see them, but I think they were more pleased to see us.
That night we put it on anchor in Victor Harbour, and we went ashore, had hot showers and feed, and when we came back to the boat we discovered that the petrol tank had rusted and fallen apart. So there was another disaster. There was petrol everywhere. It was diesel rather, I think, and the tank had fallen apart. So first job for our mechanic was to find a new petrol tank, and Richard replaced that. It took us a few hours. Eventually we got it organised. Then we managed to get ourselves a pilot, I think Talbot Smith, from Goolwa, came and was prepared to pilot us through the Murray mouth. So we set out from Victor Harbour, across the bay to Port Elliot, and then further south on the coast to Goolwa, and then we were all braced up on deck, and I was steering it through the Murray mouth, through the River Murray coming out into the ocean. It was very narrow, the channel, and we could have been breached at any time and wrecked, but we managed to get through the Murray, and we put it full steam ahead and went through into the Murray mouth. We felt exhilarated that we'd arrived into the River Murray, and then we motored up the Murray to Goolwa, a few kilometres. Through the barrage, we went through the barrage where we met family and friends, and eventually got it to the wharf at Goolwa and tied it up at the wharf. That was quite an achievement until the next morning. Now this really highlights how foolish we were. We'd never checked the vehicle for seaworthiness. We'd come through Backstairs Passage and through that huge Southern Ocean swell, and in the Murray mouth we get down to the dock at Goolwa the next morning, and the rudder had fallen off, rusted through, and was on the bottom of the River Murray. So I just am amazed at how the angels of the Lord have been around us all our life. They've been through us through our times when we were foolish, when we were making mistakes, when we thought we could do everything. The hand of God was upon us and carrying us through this incredible experience. And I praise God that we were safe on land when the rudder fell off.